Okay, so have you ever felt that just lingering kind of generalized dread? That anxiety that just sort of hangs around, but it doesn't feel connected to any actual immediate danger.
Oh, definitely. It's that background hum Martha Beck talks about. It's
Yeah.
not like sharp fear. It's different.
Exactly. And that's what she zeroes in on. It's this feeling so many of us know, maybe too well.
It really is universal. And understanding it, like really understanding it,
Mhm.
is the first step she emphasizes.
Absolutely. Which is why our deep dive today feels so relevant. We're getting into Martha Beck's book, Beyond Anxiety, A Guide to Creative Living. Think of this as, well, a way to fast track understanding how you can shift from feeling stuck in that anxiety loop
Yeah.
towards actually unlocking creativity and, finding a real sense of purpose.
It's such a practical framework she offers.
Yeah.
And we'll walk through her three main stages. First, there's the creature, basically getting to know and soothe that anxious part of ourselves.
Right.
Then we shift gears to the creative. This is all about waking up your curiosity, sparking that creative drive we all have.
Okay.
And finally, the creation, which sounds grand, but it's really about intentionally crafting a life that feels meaningful and connected. We'll definitely touch on the science behind it too, and some really usable tools.
Okay, let's dive into that first part then, the creature. Understanding and soothing anxiety. Beck makes this really key distinction right off the bat between real fear and this generalized anxiety.
Yes, she does.
Real fear is sharp,
Right.
immediate, helpful, like jumping out of the way of a car. But anxiety, she calls it a lingering dread. How does she unpack that?
Well, she talks about something called the anxiety spiral. And the crucial idea here isn't just that anxiety is a feeling, but that it often becomes a kind of learned pattern,
Yeah.
a feedback loop.
A feedback loop. How so?
So a trigger happens, maybe something small. It leads to fearful thoughts, which then generate more physical anxiety sensations. And then those sensations trigger more fearful thoughts. You
Yeah.
see, it just cycles and reinforces itself.
Ah, okay. So it feeds itself.
Exactly. And recognizing that loop, that it is a loop, is the first real step to being able to, interrupt it, to consciously change that response pattern.
That makes sense. So it's not just this vague cloud hanging over you, it's actually a process happening.
Yeah.
What's a practical way she suggests to start breaking that cycle?
She has this wonderfully simple yet pretty profound exercise. When you feel that worry creeping in, you just pause.
Yeah.
Like literally stop for a second.
Okay.
Then you try to label the physical sensations you're feeling, not the story, not the thoughts, just, okay, tightness in my chest or my stomach feels fluttery.
Got it. Just the physical data.
Right. And then here's the key shift. You gently try to replace those sensations with curiosity.
Curiosity, how does that work?
Well, for instance, you could deliberately list sensory details around you that you actually like or appreciate, like, okay, the blue of that mug, the rough texture of this notebook, the smell of coffee. That simple act starts to shift your brain's focus,
Oh.
literally nudging your neural patterns away from that anxiety track.
Huh. It sounds almost too simple, but I can see how redirecting your attention physically could make a difference. Now, you mentioned our brains getting stuck in this loop. How does that happen? Our brain's supposed to help us survive, right?
It is, yeah. Yeah, and that's the paradox. Our left brain, the analytical storytelling part, it's amazing for solving problems. But with anxiety, it can actually make things worse.
Oh.
Gets caught up trying to rationalize the anxiety, plan against every possible bad outcome, replay scenarios. It creates this wired loop, as Beck calls it. The brain essentially learns to stay anxious because it's constantly trying to figure it out.
So it's trying to help, but it digs the hole deeper.
Kinda, yeah.
Mhm.
And to work with this, Beck borrows from a model called internal family systems, or IFS. The idea is to see your anxious parts, not as enemies, but as, well, parts of you that are scared or overwhelmed.
Okay.
So instead of trying to shut them down or control them, you approach them with gentle curiosity, like you might approach a frightened child, just observing with compassion.
So less fixing, more being with. That leads to her idea of the creature united, right? This heavy emphasis on self-compassion.
Exactly. You treat the anxiety like a scared creature. You can't really reason it away, but you can soothe it. It's about offering comfort, not winning a fight.
Makes sense. And how do we practically offer that comfort in the moment?
She suggests mindfulness anchors. These are simple, grounding things you can do anytime, like taking a few slow, deep breaths or really focusing your attention on a physical object near you. Its weight, its temperature, its texture.
Little resets.
Yeah, they act like little physiological stabilizers for your nervous system. They interrupt the spiral.
And I really liked her kind detective practice. Can you explain that one?
Oh, yeah, that's a great one. So instead of judging yourself for having anxious thoughts, ugh, why am I thinking this again? You adopt the stance of a kind detective.
Okay, like Sherlock Holmes, but nicer.
Huh. Exactly. You just gently and curiously ask, what's happening here? Or what might this feeling be trying to tell me? You're gathering information with kindness rather than getting swept away by the judgment or the fear itself.
It creates a bit of space, doesn't it, between you and the thought?
Precisely. You shift from being consumed by it to observing it.
Okay, so that's the creature understanding, soothing, becoming kinder to our anxious selves. Then Beck pivots us towards the creative, activating curiosity. And here's where it gets really interesting. She says curiosity and anxiety share neural circuits.
Yeah, isn't that fascinating? They use some of the same pathways in the brain.
Mm.
But crucially, curiosity offers a constructive way out, whereas anxiety just loops.
So like two trains that can run on the same track but go to very different destinations.
That's a great way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And she differentiates between two kinds of curiosity. There's interest curiosity, that genuine, joyful pull towards something new, something that just sparks your interest.
Okay, like wanting to learn guitar or something.
Exactly. And then there's deprivation curiosity, which comes from a place of lack or insecurity, like maybe obsessively scrolling bad news, feeling like you need to know, but it just makes you feel worse.
Oh, right. That feels very different.
Very different. So the goal is to consciously cultivate that positive interest curiosity.
And the exercises we talked about, the sensory anchoring, like object appreciation, the kind detective, playful wondering, those help nudge us onto that interest track.
Yes, precisely. They're tools to gently retrain your brain to choose the curiosity path on those shared circuits again and again.
Which leads us to this lovely idea of making a sanity quilt. I love that phrase. What are squirrel passions?
Uh-huh. Yeah, squirrel passions. These are those small, maybe seemingly random things that just genuinely fascinate you or light you up. They don't have to be big or productive. Maybe it's collecting interesting rocks or trying out watercolor painting or learning about bird calls.
Okay, the little things.
Yeah. And the idea is that these little patches of interest, these squirrel passions, they actually fit together. They form this unique personal quilt that nourishes you.
So it's not about finding one big capital P passion necessarily.
Not at all, initially. It's about avoiding what she calls creative starvation by consistently engaging in these small creative acts. She talks about her own binge painting revelations, how just doing it regularly, even in small ways, is key.
Right. Don't wait for the muse. Just start quilting.
Exactly. And the quilt tool itself can be really practical, literally making a visual collage or a list of these interests to help you see the connections and guide your choices day to day. Like, what patch do I want to work on today?
I like that. It makes creativity feel more accessible, less daunting. Okay, so we got our cool patches. Then she talks about mastery freeing the magician and this creativity spiral. What are the stages there?
Right, the creativity spiral. It builds on everything we've discussed. Stage 1 is calm the creature you need, that baseline of safety.
Dixon.
Stage 2, spark curiosity, let those squirrel passions emerge. Stage 3, build connections, start seeing how your interests relate or could combine.
Okay.
Stage 4 is crucial. Dedicated practice. This isn't just casual interest anymore. It's intentionally engaging with something. But, and this is key, it's dedicated play.
Dedicated play, what does that mean?
It means structured practice, but infused with joy and curiosity, not grim determination. She gives an example of her art teacher having her just draw circles and lines, repeatedly structured, yes, but also playful exploration. It's about engaging consistently in a way that feels good.
I see. So practice, but keep the fun in it. And the final stage.
Stage 5 is flow, reaching that state of deep immersion.
Flow, where you lose track of time, you're just completely absorbed.
Exactly that. And getting into flow is incredibly powerful for rewiring the brain away from anxiety. When you're in flow, that analytical, chattering left brain quiets down.
Right.
Your perspective widens, you feel capable, and you're literally building and strengthening positive, creative neural pathways. It's deeply restorative.
Wow. So cultivating flow isn't just nice, it's actually therapeutic in this context.
Very much so.
Okay, so that flow state naturally leads us into the final part of Beck's journey, the creation. This is about crafting that life of purpose and connection. She uses the metaphor of constellating an ecosystem. What does she mean by that?
It's a shift from thinking about your life or career as one single path. Instead, picture it like a diverse natural ecosystem, a garden maybe,
Okay.
where multiple different passions and activities, like maybe your coaching work, your art practice, your community involvement, your writing, they can all coexist. They support each other, they interact, they weave together to create this rich, resilient, personal ecosystem.
So it's not just about the quilt patches, but how they live together.
Exactly. And she even extends this to the idea of an economic ecosystem. How can you perhaps create multiple streams of income that are aligned with the different patches on your sanity quilt, making your livelihood itself part of this creative expression?
That's a really empowering way to think about work and passion. It feels much more integrated. Now, another concept in this section that really stood out was don't know mind. That sounds challenging. Our culture loves answers, right?
It really does challenge that instinct. Don't know mind
Mm-hmm.
is the practice of intentionally opening up to uncertainty, letting go of the need to have everything figured out to be in control.
That sounds slightly terrifying.
It can be,
Mm.
but the idea is that by sitting with the questions without forcing answers, you create space. You allow your deeper, perhaps subconscious creative intelligence to work on problems and bring insights forward naturally. It's a kind of trust in the
A
process.
surrender almost.
Yes, a surrender to the unknown that paradoxically allows new things to emerge.
And the final piece here is deep green self, deep green earth. This feels like it ties everything together on a larger scale.
It really does. It's about finding this profound sense of belonging, not just within yourself, but by reconnecting with the natural world and with collective creativity.
Hmm.
She talks about commingling with creation.
Commingling with creation. That's beautiful.
It is. And here, Beck beautifully bridges the spiritual or intuitive with the scientific. She references people like Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor, the neuroscientist who had a stroke.
Oh, I know her story. The massive right hemisphere experience.
Exactly. Taylor's experience gave profound insights into that holistic, connected, right brain way of being. Beck connects that kind of lived experience with the hard science of neuroplasticity. It suggests that living this more creative, curious, connected life isn't just a nice idea, it aligns with how our brains and perhaps even the universe are structured.
Wow, it really brings it all together. And underpinning all of this, as you mentioned, are some solid scientific and psychological ideas. Neuroplasticity is huge here, isn't it?
Absolutely foundational. The fact that our brains can change, that they can physically rewire themselves based on experience and practice, that's the bedrock. It means these aren't just coping mechanisms, they're ways to literally reshape your brain away from those default anxiety circuits.
So it's not just think positive, it's practice differently to actually change the wiring.
Precisely. It happens through the consistent repetition of these practices, the sensory focus, the curiosity, the dedicated play.
And that ties into the idea of hemispheric balance too, right? The left brain versus right brain.
Yeah, that's a key part of her model. The idea is that anxiety often involves an overactive left brain, the analyzing, planning, worrying part.
Right, the narrator.
The narrator, exactly.
Yeah.
So the technique she advocates focusing on sensory input, creativity, intuition, these actively engage the right brain. It's about bringing the two hemispheres back into a more harmonious balance rather than letting the left brain run the whole show.
Okay, so it's about restoring equilibrium.
Exactly. And it highlights why her approach is so holistic.
Yeah.
It's not just cognitive, it's emotional, it's behavioral, it's sensory. It even touches the spiritual. It addresses the whole person.
Which makes sense because anxiety affects our whole being.
It really does.
And the great thing is, she doesn't just leave us with concepts. There are so many practical tools. You mentioned an online toolkit.
Yes. She offers resources like guided meditations, downloadable things like coloring mandalas, specific exercises, and even a sort of 30-day plan to help you build these things into actual habits.
That's really helpful for making it stick. Let's quickly recap some of those key exercises people can try. The kind detective.
Right. Notice the anxious thought, then instead of fighting it, just gently ask, what are you trying to tell me? Or what's happening here?
And object appreciation.
Yep, take maybe 5 minutes, pick up any everyday object, and just really notice it. Its color, texture, shape, weight. A simple way to ground yourself in the present moment.
Good one. Dedicated play.
Just commit to maybe 15 minutes a day doing something that sparks your curiosity and joy, but also involves a little practice or challenge. Sketching, learning chords, trying a recipe.
Keep it light, keep it regular. Okay. Don't know journaling.
This one's intriguing. Write down a question you're grappling with, like, what's the next step? Or how do I handle this? And then just free write whatever comes up without trying to find the answer. Just let thoughts flow.
Trusting the process again.
Exactly. And finally, ecosystem mapping. That's about sketching out your quilt patches, your interests and passions, and starting to brainstorm how they might connect, support each other, maybe even become part of how you make a living or contribute to the world.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive really has been a journey, hasn't it? From understanding and soothing that anxious creature
Yeah.
to waking up the creative through curiosity and those squirrel passions.
Yeah.
And finally, stepping into the creation of a life that feels purposeful and connected, like that ecosystem idea. It really feels like a pathway to reclaiming agency.
It absolutely is. It's a powerful reminder that we're not just passively subject to anxiety. We have tools, we have practices, we have the capacity to reshape our inner world and, consequently, our outer experience too.
Yeah. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening to take away. What if consciously choosing to cultivate these small daily acts of curiosity, these little moments of dedicated play, isn't just about managing anxiety? What if it's actually the most revolutionary thing you can do to push back against that tide in your own life?
Hmm. That's a powerful reframe.
Yeah, what's one tiny thing you could explore or play with today, not because you have to, but just for the sheer joy of it?